A large part of narcissism in the church is the dichotomy between the clergy and the laity.
Nobody's lesser than in the kingdom.
But the gifts should be rising up through the people.
Well, guess what, Pastor? God didn't call you to the Moses model. The dichotomy is a problem. But then you have churches trying to solve that dichotomy between the laity and everybody else by trying to make everybody a staff member in our system. I was watching people fall by the wayside and their families be torn apart and everything else because they were carrying a weight they were never meant to carry. We were no longer asking if people were called to ministry. We were asking if we could develop them into a staff member in our systems. We were putting people to be staff members who were never called to be pastors and they couldn't carry the weight because it wasn't their calling. We need to stop focusing so much on leadership and start focusing more on gifting and equipping. Why do we want leadership? Because the system demands leaders at different levels. The system demands more middle managers than we can pay. So we need some volunteers that'll become middle managers.
A large part of narcissism in the church is the dichotomy between the clergy and the laity, between the staff and the laity. When you see the staff separate themselves from the laity, and then because the gifts should be rising up through the laity and through the using those dichotomous terms there, but the gifts should be rising up through the people. When you've got a dichotomous structure, you've constantly got a boot on your head.
Yep. And
so I think a lot of the pain that people have had is that there's a boot on their head, and we should be lifting other people up. Our goal, our job is to lift other people up. But when someone is stepping on you to try to get to the top, and there's even in some churches, there's even structure in the laity where the laity's even the laity's stepping on each other, where everybody's clawing.
I've got to keep you down to keep my influence.
Yeah, exactly. Like if people heard what you said, they might disagree with what I said.
If people knew how talented you were, or how gifted you were in this area,
you're a threat.
Because I recognize you may be more gifted than me, when it really should just be, hey, well, where's the right spot? Like, nobody's lesser than in the kingdom, right? We just have different spots. But I'll say this. So let's take it a step further, Buck, and then we'll actually jump into what narcissistic systems look like in the church, okay? And what narcissism in the church looks like. But there are a lot of churches who even break down that dichotomy. It is all the rage in the megachurch system right now to break down that dichotomy with two ways. One, we have a leadership development program to develop our volunteers and to help you rise through the ranks, okay? And we have a college. Our college
school.
Now listen, our college isn't really a college. We're going to partner with a college that already exists to let you go there online, but you'll get a lot of credit from interning with us and getting practical experience. But here's the whole reason behind the college, and here's the whole reason for the leadership development program, which, by the way, church leaders, we need to focus. And again, I love leadership. I wrote a book on leadership. We need to stop focusing so much on leadership and start focusing more on gifting and equipping. Okay. Not everybody has the gift of leadership, but everybody has a gift that needs to be equipped in the kingdom. Okay. Why do we want leadership? Because the system demands leaders at different levels. The system demands more middle managers than we can pay. So we need some volunteers that'll become middle managers in the system. That's all it is. Okay. And again, you can get mad at me if you want, but as both a pastor in those systems and as a national church consultant, I can tell you all that is we need more middle managers in the systems, okay? And when I was in, when I was in the big church ministry, we called them things like coaches and senior coaches and directors. It was a layer of middle managers, including the majority of the staff were middle managers, okay? We don't need more middle managers. We think we do, and we go back and we justify it with the Moses model. Oh, the Moses model, he had people over 100s and 50s and 10s and all of that. Okay, well, guess what, Pastor? God didn't call you to the Moses model. He called Moses to the Moses model. And if you remember the Moses model, it didn't stay long term. We went to the judges and had a theocracy. And then after the judges, we had a king, right? We had a monarchy, okay? And now we have another king and we have a monarchy. We don't need to go to the Moses model and use it to justify this big system with middle managers. But what they do, man, we start the leadership development program and the college, and some of them call their leadership development program a college, and then you have to go in and find out it's not really a college, it's not accredited, there's no degree program. Why are they calling it a college? I don't know, right? Those two things are all the rage in this system, and the best churches at it have both. The churches that don't have one or two, and the churches that can't figure out how to have either one of those, they at least have an internship. And what is the point? The point is, I've been on these staffs. I've been in the rooms with many of these staffs beyond my own experience on these staffs. The point is, can we find the best and brightest in our flock that we can develop into staff candidates and make staff? But the only way we can develop them into staff candidates, we don't just help them develop their gifting. We have to develop their yes, sir mentality. We have to develop their yes, man mentality. And when they're fully invested in our mission, vision, values, and our system, our way of doing things, and they won't question it, well, then we'll hire them. And why will we hire them? Because statistically, if we hired you from inside the church, you're more likely to stay. You're more likely to do the work with less pay. You're less likely to leave because you don't know what it's like on another church staff. And we're not asking, guys, this is my biggest problem. One of my biggest problems before I left the last big church staff that I was on, we were no longer asking if people were called to ministry. We were no longer asking if people were called to serve in the church. We were asking if we could develop them into a staff member in our systems. And we were putting people to be staff members who were never called to be pastors, and they couldn't carry the weight because it wasn't their calling.
Right.
And then I was watching people fall by the wayside and their families be torn apart and everything else because they were carrying a weight they were never meant to carry. So the dichotomy is a problem. But then you have churches trying to solve that dichotomy between the laity and everybody else by trying to make everybody a staff member in our system, which is also a big part of the problem. The first question we should be asking for every person in our flock is, what are they called to? What are they gifted to do? And does that happen mostly inside the walls of the church or mostly outside the walls of the church? How can we equip this saint to do the good work that God ordained for them to do before the creation of the world? And instead, we're saying, how can we get them into our leadership development pipeline so we can make them a middle manager and maybe one day a staff member? And we have all these people in Christian culture right now. Some of you, I'm talking to you. You've been working 40, 60 hours almost for free, okay? Because you want to get on a church staff so bad. And if that's how you got to get on that church staff, you don't want to be on that church staff because that church staff is narcissistic and unhealthy, right? Got someone close to me right now, someone that they're not super close to me, someone that I know, that I love, that I care for, that I pray for by name, right? They've been a part of an internship at a large church, a paid internship, right? But they get paid $10 an hour.
Right.
Okay, now listen to this.
They're missionaries.
I'm not supposed to know all this. So this person, this could fit a lot of different people, but I know this from around the grapevine, not from this specific person. But they're getting paid $10 an hour, okay? But they're also required to serve in ministry spots that they actually work in and serve volunteer hours of 10 plus hours a week. So actually, when you do that free labor that they have to give, otherwise they get fired, when you count that in it, they're making less than minimum wage. And how is the church getting by with paying this person from inside their church who grew up in their church less than minimum wage? Because it's the difference in their internship and their volunteer hours. So this person is working full-time hours basically for peanuts. Why? Because they want to be on staff so bad. Because they want to be a pastor so bad. And if you feel called to be a pastor, pursue that. But if those are the kind of hoops you have to jump through at this church to be a pastor in their system, it's an unhealthy system. And I promise you, you don't want to be a part of that church staff, because when you get it, it will go from being a dream come true to being a nightmare. And I say that because I've been through it.
Well, and I think we need to define what a pastor actually is, because a preacher ain't a pastor.
No, there's a difference in the fivefold ministry.
Yeah.
There's a difference in the shepherd, and there's a difference in a teacher.
Yeah, and but yeah, so we got people in the pulpits that call themselves pastors, and they're not pastors; they're just preachers. And but a pastor is who you are; it's not what you do. An apostle is who you are. A prophet, going to Ephesians, but a prophet is who you are.
Even
it's
a
not what
teacher.
you do. A teacher, an evangelist, all that is who you are, not what you do. And that's, to me, that's part of even, I would call that part of the narcissistic tendency of the church, is that we define everything by titles, and we define everything by what we do. We don't define it by who we are.
Yeah.
And it's not something that flows through us. It's burdens that we carry.
And more than that, we don't define our identity from who we are. We define it from what we do, right? But we also We define our identity. We are supposed to be defining our identity by whose we are.
Yep.
Yes.
Not what we do, not even who we are, whose we are first. I am Jesus's. I am a child of God. And because I am a child of God through the blood of Jesus, I have been given a gift, and I have been called to develop that gift. I've been called to be a part of a church that equips that gift and equips me to use that, because the body needs me to use that gift, because that's who I am. And what I do will then be an overflow of who I am. And because I started with whose I am, it will be an overflow of whose I am. And now I am Jesus, and I'm exhibiting the fruit of the Spirit everywhere I go. But if I start with what I do, I have skipped whose I am. I have skipped who I am. And now I'm operating out of what I do, and